Platinum Portfolio's global flexible strategy is nearing an important milestone, having navigated very different market cycles while remaining anchored to quality, valuation, and patience. We speak to Mel Meltzer about the fund's journey, its long-term philosophy, and why discipline still matters in a market often driven by short-term momentum. Welcome, Mel. It's great to have you.
Well, it's great being here, Renette. And yeah, it has been a very, very long journey. This fund has, the Platinum Worldwide Flexible Fund we've been managing now for about 20 years. And you are absolutely right that the most important thing for us as a fund management house is to stick to process, stick to our philosophy, stick to the companies that fit our philosophy, and not to deviate from the way that we manage money. And that's not as easy as it sounds, because markets go through different cycles. We have commodity booms, we have commodity sell-offs, we've got blue cars that are favored by the market, and then we've got green cars, and different asset classes over this 20-year period behave differently, and in the same manner, our clients also behave differently. When the going's good, clients haven't really got much to say, but when they start comparing performance in the short term to other asset classes or other performance metric, then clients can and do ask questions. But from Platinum's point of view, we stick rigidly to our philosophy, regardless of short-term numbers or short-term performance.
Yeah, that is, in the short term, I've got to know you guys. That is something that I really picked up. That is the way that you do your business. And it's black and white, and that is how you do it. The fund is global and flexible, but it has historically kept equity exposures below 75%. How would you describe its role in an investor's portfolio?
It's a flexible mandate, which means that we as the fund managers have most of our money in this fund. This fund is based on the opportunities that we see in the market. So the relative values of asset classes really would determine the asset allocation to equities over the long term. Just to go back to the beginning of the fund, there were periods when we were 90% invested in equities. But the last 10 years have really been a difficult environment where equities have tended to be overvalued for long periods of time. Currently, we believe equities are still slightly overvalued relative to yields and interest rates. So it is the relative value that determines the asset allocation. It's the relative value of different companies that we can buy at fair value that determines how much equities we've got in the portfolio. We've gone down to about 68% as a low in equities over time, and currently we're sitting at about 76% in equities. So our asset class is really determined by the opportunities that we see in the market. And we would also add that we do not buy companies or add companies to the portfolio that are not trading at our fair value. The price we pay is one of the most important and fundamental reasons to generate returns into the future.
Yeah, and why it's going good with Platinum Portfolio. So you look for financially strong, dominant businesses with sustainable competitive advantages. What tells you that a company has a genuine economic moat?
So we assess a company as a business to determine whether that company has got the classic economic moat. What their product is, what their how they can lock clients in. So to give you a classic example, the walled garden of Apple really provides Apple with an economic moat, because once you're part of that walled garden, you are captured by the Apple franchise. And it's the same with Coca-Cola or any of these strong brands or companies where customers to change from one customer to the next customer is not as easy as it seems. And the same applies to companies like Microsoft, companies like Fortinet, which we've recently purchased, or Broadcom. Those companies all have economic moats because they've got a durable competitive advantage. And for customers to change is very difficult. And so customers within that walled garden are quite sticky. So yes, we do like companies with economic moats for two reasons. One, it gives them a competitive advantage. And we find that those businesses over time have got higher margins.
Okay. You've said that you'll not buy even a good company above fair value. So how do you assess fair value, and how difficult is it to remain patient when markets keep rising?
Well, for us, we've developed a process that looks at the cash flows over time, because the share price of a company is determined by the long-term cash flows and earnings of that company. So we do our best to be slightly more conservative to determine what the fair value is, adding up all the cash flows and the growth of the company in the future. So these are real guesstimates, but we do use certain metrics that we think are reliable. And because we want to own a business, not trade a business, we are prepared to be very, very patient before buying a company. And we will wait for that business to trade at our fair value price. So a recent example of that is a company like Ecolab. We think it's a fantastic business. It briefly touched our fair value level, and we weren't able to buy it, and now it's sort of stretched, gone away a little bit from us. But that's the type of company that we will wait, and we will be patient, and we will add it to the portfolio when it trades at the right price, because we understand that we overpay for an asset, we're not going to get a return for our clients. So that it takes a lot of patience, and the investment committee will not allow the fund manager to buy shares that are trading even $1 above fair value. So that is our rule, and we stick to that rule.
I love it. That's great. The portfolio combines global businesses with income-focused funds. So what does that blend of long-term growth and income add to the portfolio?
Well, we believe that very much like Warren Buffett does, that if we can't find opportunities by buying companies or adding companies to the portfolio, we allocate money to short-dated bonds. And for that, we use certain building blocks overseas. We use the Vanguard short-dated ETF and two funds that are really cash plus funds overseas. And then locally, we use the same. We use short-dated bonds in the portfolio, and we believe that provides a certain amount of stability in the portfolio, and it gives us the ability to act very quickly because we have got quite a lot of cash on hand.
You are comfortable holding cash while waiting for opportunities. So when does cash become a useful investment tool rather than a drag on return?
Well, we believe that cash gives us the opportunity to take advantage of opportunities in the market. So we do not see cash or the amount of cash that we hold, which is about 24-25% right now, as a liability or a drag in the market. It gives us the security of having powder available that we can utilize when we see opportunities in the market. Because sometimes, we don't want to sell out of one company to buy another company if one assumes that you're fully invested. We are not traders. We are owners of companies for the long term.
The fund's 15-year performance is a standout, and from our discussion, I can understand why. But the shorter term numbers have been a little bit softer. So how do you explain the contrast to investors?
Well, the contrast in the performance, I think, is primarily mainly due to the fact that the rand remains relatively stable for the last 7 years. So we didn't have the benefit of a weakening currency. In fact, we had a strengthening currency, which obviously affected the performance of the Worldwide Flex in rands, albeit in dollars, the performance has been very good. I'm happy to say that in the last quarter, the fund once again outperformed and provided very good solid returns and moved from a lower quartile performance in the short term to back where it belongs. So, but in the short term and long term in markets, it's difficult to quantify. A 15-year period, I think, encompasses most cycles, and this fund in its category comes second or third and top quartile and has generated a compound return of about 12.5% for investors. So yes, our longer term investors are delighted with the portfolio. They are delighted with the risk-adjusted returns. And I can give investors the assurance that when there are opportunities, we will take advantage of them. But we will not swing our bat just to take a chance with investors' money. We are the custodians of people's money, and we take that very seriously.
Yeah, that's exactly the comment I wanted to make. You take it very serious. As the fund enter its next chapter, where are you seeing opportunities and what will remain non-negotiable in the investment process?
Well, the fund has got a flexible mandate. So currently, we do see some opportunities in the market. Recently, we switched Pepsi into Broadcom. We felt that Pepsi can't give us a real return from current levels, and that Broadcom, which is basically the backbone of the internet worldwide, is a company that has come down quite substantially in the last 6 months, is trading below our fair value, and we believe it's a good addition to the portfolio. Very difficult for me to predict in the short term what opportunities are going to arise. We've had this Iran war, we've had higher fuel prices, we've got inflation that's trending higher, not only because of the price of fuel, but also the too much money chasing too few goods in the data center space and the race in AI. So from our point of view, our equity allocation of about 76% to us, we feel very comfortable with. Makes a lot of sense. We'd like to see more opportunities in the local market, and we will take advantage of those opportunities should they arise, because the local companies, some local companies that we really like, are well run. So it just depends on the volatility in the market and whether that volatility is going to give us opportunities to buy good companies.
That was a great chat, Mel. Thank you for your time, and keep on doing what you're doing, because I can see with you guys, it is all about the clients, and there's a right and a wrong. So thank you for the insights. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Renette. Thank you very much, and thanks for your time.